right down the block.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for accept our invitation, Suave. I am so happy to meet with you again after 2 3 years. But I know, even if many people know your name now, many people doesn't. And I want to introduce them. Who is David Suave Luis? No, David.
David Luis Suave Gonzalez. David Luis is one name.
Yes. Oh, David Luis.
Sounds like two, but it's one.
Okay. And Suave Gonzalez. Who is this guy who just wanted?
I'm just a regular guy from North Philadelphia. That served 31 years incarcerated, and is now doing podcasting for the world to hear. Just a regular person.
How was the most? What was the most difficult thing you lived in your first 17 years here in this town? Because you're born in the Bronx,
I was
right?
born in the Bronx. I think it was surviving the streets of Philadelphia in the early 80s. You know, for those that know, you know, back then you couldn't cross one neighborhood to the next neighborhood. Everything was like a crew, a gang, surviving that. And in the process, you know, I did some things that landed me in prison with a life sentence.
What happened?
Somebody got killed right in North Philadelphia, and I decided to play by the code of the streets. That means that I wasn't willing to snitch. I wasn't willing to tell on nobody, not knowing that I was going to end up with a life sentence. So when I decided to do that, the district attorney decided, since you don't want to give up the person they did it, we're going to charge you with the crime. And that's what they did.
And you passed 3 decades of your life in prison.
Well, I spent 31 and a half years in prison.
How was?
Oh, it was rough. It was rough. I mean, knowing that you are in a room the size of a bathroom, and that was your whole future. That was it. This is where you're gonna live. This is where you're gonna die. You know, it's rough because it plays to your mental health. It plays with your psyche, and it could either turn you bad or it could turn you good.
And you decide for good.
Well, I decided that I wanted a better life, even if I was in prison. So I just started reading books.
Because you actually say that you really don't read, write at 17 years old when you was
Well,
there, like
I was illiterate. I didn't know how to read or write. So I went in, you know, the first 10 years in any prison for anyone is rough because you got to get adjust. You got to forget everything you was brought up in the streets. Now you got to adjust to a new life. So, you know, I spent 7 years in solitary confinement because I'm the type of person, I don't like authority figures. I don't like being told what to do. So I had that same mentality, so it landed me in solitary confinement. But while I was in solitary confinement, I learned how to read. I was picking up books and reading and writing to the point where I authored 5 books. And then I began painting, and then I began imagining a world outside of that cell. And that's what kept me alive in prison.
But in that moment, you don't have really any hope to.
No, I had a life sentence. Technically, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm supposed to be in a prison dying, waiting for a tag on my toes. So I beat the odds, you know, and I did that because once I learned how to read and write, it just opened a window of opportunity and possibilities. So I started getting involved with political issues and contacting Esperanza and contacting a good friend of mine that's really like a father, Roger Ciprian, that sit on the board with Esperanza. And he's been in the community forever. So he began visiting and we began strategizing. We started a scholarship. and we was helping young people go to college from the money we raised in the prison. And I told myself, I'm not gonna die in prison. I'm not gonna give the state the benefit to seeing me die in prison. And I seen a whole lot of people. In my 31 years in prison, I seen over 500 men die in prison. Over 500. You know, I still have a list of all the people that I know that was in Gratisville prison that passed away. You know, because that's what a life sentence is in the state of Pennsylvania. It's a death sentence. You dying in prison. So for me to be here today, it's like a miracle. It's a blessing.
But at some point, you want to die as well.
You know, I was ready. I was prepared. I was mentally prepared to die in prison. That's just a fact. Because if you're not, you're gonna get depressed. You know, you're gonna go crazy thinking that I'm going home one day, but you got a life sentence. That don't happen. When you're a lifer, the only thing you're thinking is how I'm gonna survive in here and how much time I am willing to do. Meaning that I'm only do as much time as I want to do. If I want to commit suicide, I commit suicide and end it all. It could end all and snap of a finger. But like I said, you know, that was the period in my life where I was hopeless. I ain't thought I would ever get out. But then something clicked. Something clicked like, yo, you could get out. Anything is possible. And I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in God. And, you know, I've read the Bible a few times. And I was like, man, if these people could do it, we could do it. And people looking at me like, oh my God, you really going crazy. Because people in Pennsylvania with life sentences don't get out. And I was like, no, we really could do it. You know, so I managed to free my mind first from being incarcerated. So physically I was there, but my mind was always in the community, in the street. That's why we was able to create a scholarship. That's why we was able to give out food and buy clothes and adopt different schools, because my mind was out here. It wasn't locked up. You have individuals that after 10 years, they become part of that environment. I never became part of the prison environment.
I want to get back a little bit. What about your family? Your mother died when you was in prison.
My mother died when I was in prison.
You have 6 brothers, right?
I have 6 sisters, 5 sisters and 1 brother. When I went in, I had an entire family: grandmother, aunts, cousins, grandfather. When I came out, it was like everything was like gone, because all the elders in my family passed away.
Your father?
Don't know who he is. But like my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, my grandmother's sister, these were people that were close to our family. Like anybody that was close family is gone. You know, yes, I still got sisters. I still got brothers. I got a bunch of nephews. But these are individuals that was born after I was incarcerated. So I really don't know them. I know their names, seen a few pictures here, but I really don't have no relationship to them.
Do you miss that environment you had for 30 years? Your friends, because...
Do I miss it? No, not really, because like I said, once...
scared maybe at some point when you were about to...
I mean, when you first come home after 3 decades and you locked in that room, 3 decades, that's your whole life, and they let you out. Of course you're gonna be scared. But at the same time, I had a support system. I got a great support system, and it don't include family. My support system was like Roger and other people in the community that had my back when I came home. You know, so but yeah, I was scared. I was like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do now? How I'm gonna learn how to ride a bus? When I went in, the bus was 50 cents. Come home, it's $2.50, and you gotta have a key card. And the machines at the stores are talking to you, and you like, the heck going on here? But you learn these stuff. But do I miss it? No. Because I think I do more good in here for the brothers that are still in there than me being in there.
And you're still in contact with some of
Yeah,
your.
yeah. Get phone calls every day from people in prison.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm never gonna forget that part. You know, that's a part of my life that will always live with me. That's my history. Everything I know as an adult man, I learned in prison. You know, I learned how to shave somewhat in prison. You know, so that would never be something that I could forget or walk away from. But I detox from it. I decompress myself from it. It's not where I get up and I'm thinking about, oh, what's they gonna serve for lunch today? No, I don't miss it.
And what do you learn in these 4 years? Because some things changed radically, but other things like violence, like many other problems we still have, and maybe it's worse.
What I learned in the past 4 years is that we have a place and a voice that must be heard. I learned that we still live in a racist society. We still view certain people uh, through different lenses, people that are not to our liking. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I hope people feel the same way. But it don't give me the right to discriminate against that person just because they don't like what I'm saying or I don't like what they're saying. And I learned that I came back into a community that still reflect 1986. It's still different people, but it's still the same thing. You know, still the same thing. Still the same discrimination. Still the lack of opportunities for our young people. Because we always talking about we want our young people to do better, but there's nothing for them to do. There's nothing for them. And the people that's really out there advocating for them don't really get the resources or the recognition that they need to really assist our community. You know, that's the same thing that was going on with when Ronald Reagan was in office. Same exact thing that's going on today was going on back then. Nothing changed. The only difference today is that we have social media, that everything is publicized. Back then, something happened, it takes you 3 or 4 days to find out. Now, anything happens, it takes you a minute. All you gotta do is go on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever else they got, and you get your news. But really, it's the same thing. And what I learned is that in able to really be effective, you got to create your own platforms.
And it's something you did.
Yeah, yeah. You know, like I said, and we spoke about this. When I started with a certain radio station in Philly. The strategy for me was not to get paid. It was to learn the system, which I did. Learn how to do podcasts. I learned the equipment, you know. But in the process, I learned that every person that portrayed to be a community leader is really not. You know, some of them are just here sucking the blood in the Latino community, taking their dollars, right, to Bucks County and other places, but coming here and won't even put $1 in our own community. But yet they want to call themselves community leaders. And I'm talking about certain Latino community leaders. You know, at some point, they will be put out, you know, but I learned that, and I learned not to really trust these so-called leaders, right? They want to have these backdoor meetings about what the community needs, but won't involve the community in them conversations.
They use us a lot, no?
You know, I learned that real fast. But I also learned to use my voice. I learned the power of media. You know.
And I think somebody changed your life in many ways, and you changed her life in many ways. This is like a kind of, you know, win and win, I think,
right,
with Maria Hinojosa.
Right.
But how you meet her? Like several years ago.
Well, I met her in 1999. 93. I was still in solitary confinement. Somebody gave me a radio. I heard her voice, and I was like, "Oh, they got a Latina on the radio." Now back then there was no Latinas on the radio. The only Latina we had in Philadelphia, I believe, was Maria de Pilar, and Ray Collazo used to come on Saturdays with a viaje. Damn, I'm going far. I went back, and so when I heard her voice, I thought she was in Philly, but I was hearing National Public Radio. And I was like, damn. And she was talking about social issues. She wasn't talking about entertainment. She was talking about social issues. So I wrote a letter and whatever I could write. And she wrote back. She said, I didn't understand nothing about your letter, but I'm writing back. So we started, one of the Latino guys, he was the tutor. Y'all probably know him, Ray Yabo. He used to own the 503 Corporation. And he was a tutor at that time in the prison. And he graduated like 30 Latinos with GED. And I was like, you got to get her to come up as the guest speaker. And I begged him, I'm like, come on, do this for me. Then he said, I don't know. So they gave him the opportunity to invite a guest speaker. It was either Maria Hinojosa, and I never said this before, or Angel Ortiz from Philadelphia. And I was like, man, nobody want to see Angel Ortiz up there. No disrespect, but the guys from Philly ain't even know who Angel Ortiz was, even though he was like at that time the only the first, I believe, Puerto Rican guy in city council. But the Latinos in the prison didn't know who he was. I was like, I don't want to see Angel Ortiz. Right. So when they brought Maria up, I snuck into the graduation, and she was talking, and I just felt like everything she was saying was for me. So when she was done, I was like, listen, I'm doing life. What can I do? I'm from New York. I know people. And she was like, oh, you could be the sauce. You could be my sauce. And that's what started that conversation. And then she just sending me books, and she was sending me magazines that I couldn't even read. And one of the boxes was one of her books. And I pay a guy a pack of cigarettes to read a book to me. And the guy thought that he was hustling me. So he was like, you want me to read some more for you? So I had to read the whole book. I used to give him cigarettes to the point where I memorized the book. And that was like my beginning in learning how to read and write. Because since I already knew the book by heart, I could open the page and read it, and start reading. And that's how I learned how to read and write.
And now, Puerto Rican, you just won the biggest prize.
That's what they say. Is that the biggest? That's what they say.
Any journalist around the world, I can say, as it's an aspiración, no, for many people. And you say, like, I remember your interview in Democracy Now! And you say, I don't want to become a celebrity.
No, I don't.
But you are. Now you are.
I don't. And I say that because, it's easy now. Today, it's easy for people to forget that just 4 years ago, I was incarcerated with a life sentence. That's easy to forget. Oh, he's the Pulitzer Prize Award winner. He won the ADA. That's all good. But backtrack. The backstory is that I'm still a lifer on parole for the rest of my life, right? I'm a person that came from North Philadelphia that spent 31 years incarcerated. Did the school system fail? Because it was the school system that told me that I couldn't learn how to read and write. It was the school system that diagnosed me as mentally retarded because you didn't take the time to show me how to read and write. So I don't want people to forget that. I don't want people to think that, oh, it's all lights now, that he's a celebrity. No. I appreciate the award. I appreciate that it has given me a national presence, which only means that when I say something now, people are hearing. We could bring an issue to the front and have a meaningful conversation and not just be brushed off. Because, no disrespect to journalists, but traditional media is known for isolating the voice of marginalized communities, people such as prisoners, immigrants, or undocumented, whatever title they use. Those voices get shadowed away because we don't fit the mold that they have. I don't come with a cookie cutter. So if you want to hear our podcast, you getting the real deal. And we instructed our editors, like, don't cut something out because you don't understand it. So what you heard in the podcast was like what was really recorded, which is what everybody in this community go through every day. Because if you walk out of here and you go down the block, you see the candle visuals in every corner. That means that some young man or woman was just murdered. That's what that means. And that's probably never going to change. So I don't want people to think that, well, he's one of us now. I'm not a journalist. I'm a podcaster. I'm not a journalist. And that's what's good about winning this award. Journalists, they like, wow. And I'm honored that I was able to bring my friend, my mentor, somebody that's really mean a lot in my life, a Poster award. But at the same time, I'm like, damn, should it take 30, 40 years for her to win something when she's been doing that for 40 years? And she is like a world-class reporter. So there's still some work, some racism in media. She's been in media for almost 40 years. And it takes a story from a former juvenile lifer to bring this home when she should have been having this. And to me, it's even a greater honor that it was 3 women in my production team. They won. I heard a report lately that they said that Maria was the first Latina that won. No, Maria is not the first. It was another one before us last year. Then is Maria Hinojosa. Then is Julieta Martinelli, which is part of our production team.
Just from Argentina, actually.
From Argentina.
Joven,
and then we got Maggie Furley. She's Italian from Long Island, New York. So it's 3 women that won the Poster Award due to the Suave podcast. So it's not just Suave. No, it's a team. And like I told you, and I'm going to always say it, this is not an award just for me. This is an award for our entire community. For every little kid that was told, you would never learn how to read or write, or your dad or mom is in prison, you're never going to amount to nothing. For those brothers and sisters that are left behind, for those that are wrongly convicted, this is a win for them. This is a win for criminal justice issues to be in the front line. Because now people are calling me like I'm an expert. Like, oh, you served 31 years, we need your expertise. Really? Like, you really need my expertise? You don't need my expertise. But okay, what can I do? So my thing is like, yeah, I'm celebrating. Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm honored. But at the same time, I'm like, there's a lot of work to be done. At the end of the day, when I go home, I got to go to bed. I got to wake up and take the bus to go to community college and work. So to me, it's just another day with a better platform.
Absolutely. But yes, and I think, yes, it's awesome that you recognize that it's not just for you, it's for your community as a Puerto Rican, as the problem we have in entire America. And for me, María representa para mí what I am, no? The Mexican immigrant, even if she's born here, etc. But she always was.
She's born in Mexico.
She born in Mexico? I
Chihuahua.
thought she was. Chihuahua.
She's born in Mexico.
Because
Raised in Chicago.
Raised in Chicago. She was very young, I think, when she came to. But yes, it's also like a we together, like a two communities are representing in that award. What is next for you? Because I think you are doing, and I think she's doing the new journalism. I think we need to redefine journalism. It's not the same. I think if something changed in all these years, is for me, that's why you are doing journalism. You are journalists, like our community people who actually write for Impacto. They
Right.
are now honor their words, their voice, their own voice, no? And I
Right.
think you are doing the same thing. That's why I think you are a journalist now, and we need to redefine journalism. And with this award, is something that they, I think, I aware of this change.
Right.
What is next for you?
Well, I am a producer with Maria's company. I went from being the subject to producing to now being producer and co-host of Suave's podcast season 2, which is coming real soon. Stay tuned; it's going to be crazy. Um, I host and produce my own show, which is Death by Incarceration, and under us, we do documentaries. So we produce a documentary about social justice and wrongful conviction, which is called Injustice. Um, I produce for Apple, which is probably the biggest platform and right now in podcasts. And we are talking to a couple of well-known entities to bring the podcast into visuals. Visuals. I can't really say a lot because I'm on the contract, but stay tuned. You might see it on Netflix soon. I can say that much. And it's just the beginning. I want to create something that give the youth a platform on a national level, and let them see that you could really get into podcasts and make a career out of this. You no longer have to go to Columbia University and to become a journalist. All you have to do is pull out your iPhone and get a microphone and some headphones, and you could tell a story that could take you to the highest level of journalism and change the way they do things. Because when you listen to our podcast, there's nothing like that out there. And I think that that's what people bought into, like, whoa, this is on this level? This is on MSNBC? This is on Democracy Now? This is on CBS? Hold up, I never heard nothing like that. But it's coming from somebody, and I think that it works because me not being a journalist trained, I have different views, and it allows me to think outside the box when producing and recording. I could say certain things that you can't because I don't have fund this fund our project. Death by Incarceration, which is my LLC, is mine. And another brother in California, we own it. So I can't get fired from my own company for saying something. You as a journalist with a bigger entity, if you say the wrong thing or somebody get offended, oh, we don't want her on air, you off the air. I get hate mail all the time because we did a story about a dirty correctional officer. And what I tell the people is, you don't like what we said, come on the air, we give you space and talk to us. And that's the beauty of it. So I want people to understand that you could go out and create your own platform and still be affected. And if you stay true to yourself and be authentic, you could compete. We beat NBC, CBS, BBC, and Fox News and National Radio Public. These are the biggest corporate media companies out there. And then you got Futuro, which is like independent, started by a Mexican and run by a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing, right? And I mean that in a good sense. In the eyes of people, that's not real journalism. But yet we walked away with 2 of the biggest awards out there, which is the IDA, the International Documentary Award, which is like the Oscars and podcasting. A month later, we walk away with every reporter's in America's dream, the Pulitzer Award. And I'm like, what? You know, but it shows that if you put in the work and you don't chase, just put in the work, the blessings will come. The blessings will come, you know, and this is what the message should be to all the youth. Like, here you got a guy that was in prison for 31 years. Learn how to read and write in prison. Still learning. Come home and walked away with the biggest award in journalism. Because I know the significance of that award. I don't buy into the hype of it, but I know the significance of it. You know, and when I get around the journalists that you see in TV, I like to throw it out. Yeah, I got one too. You got an Emmy, okay? I got a Pulitzer. Like, because journalists like to throw that around. I got an Emmy for my. Okay, we got one too. I think we got the biggest one, but you know, and I was incarcerated because I don't never want nobody to forget that the struggle, the lonely nights, the loss of family members, like all this is in that podcast. Don't forget that this guy was arrested in North Philadelphia and given a life sentence because somebody else committed a crime and he refused to tell. You know, so don't forget that. Yeah, we living the life according to y'all, but don't forget that that's the backstory. So you could make it. If I could make it, that I learned how to read in my 20s, in my late 20s, you that been in school since kindergarten all the way to college have a bigger opportunity to make it. So there's no excuse to say I can't or they ain't gonna let me. Well, guess what? Come to Esperanza, look at all the equipment here. We can make a movie with this. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. There's no excuse to be in the streets. There's no excuse to be selling drugs. There's no excuse to be out there robbing people. Because I could make just as much money that you making doing illegal stuff, doing this right here.
And living your purpose.
And living with a purpose. And I don't have to have the cops, the FBI, or nobody knocking in my door looking for me. So, you know, I just want people to know that anything is possible. Anything.
Yes, and the last question, but you can say whatever you want to tell us that maybe I didn't ask you. If you have, you know, if the problem wasn't a problem, if you can, you know, have the whole millions of dollars that some fundraiser give you to fix something here in Philly, in this barrio you grow, what you will do?
The educational system, because I think that our teachers, I think that the reason the educational system in Philadelphia is so messed up is because our city leaders, elected officials do not hold our teachers in high regard. So what you have is teachers that in the community, they could really make a difference, but don't want the job because for what? I could make more working down the block. When a person could make more money working at Maria's down the block than working in Esperanza, for example, that's a problem. That's a problem. How you expect somebody to educate your kid from kindergarten all the way to the 12th grade when they're not being compensated? They're human, they got families too. So our school system is messed up. If I had a lot of money, that's the first thing I fix. I would try to recruit the best Latino teachers in the community. Within. Now I'm gonna go to New York and get somebody within the community, because the teachers in the community understand the problem, they understand the issue, because they live in the community.
They belong.
They belong here. But that's the problem, you know, our educational system don't support, our elected officials don't support the educational system. We hold them in high expectation, but we don't reward them. We don't give them computers. We don't give them the latest technology. Everything they get, they got to fight for. It's a struggle. When it should be, every kid from kindergarten all the way up should always have school supplies. And it should not fall on the parents to be like, you got to bring a bag full of school supplies like some of these schools do around here. Like, no. The school should be able to supply that. We should make it where kids want to go to school every day. Our school system, our kids don't want to go to school. It's boring. What am I going to school for?
It's dangerous, actually, some of the schools.
I just come from California. If you see the school system up there in Marin County, I was blown away. They had karate classes. They had computers all out in like a big yard because people still fear COVID, so they're holding classes like in the yard. But the yard is like what the heck? Computers and wellness centers and everything you could possibly think that could make a child feel good to be in that space was there. But then you drive down to the Mission, which is the equivalent of Kensington, and you see the different and it's only but a 5-minute drive across the bridge. So that's the problem we have in this community. We have a beautiful school here with staff, they care about our children, but I'm willing to bet if we start doing research about how many elected officials invest in here, it's probably not a lot. Our elected officials are not reachable to our students. The adults, we know who they are, but can our student reach them? No. So when you talk about that disconnect with the community, it starts with them elected officials. And that's why we see schools that people don't want to go to. Why would I want to send my kid to school and then live in fear that he might get shot today? He might get shot or she might get shot today. You don't think a parent think about that after we seen what we seen in Texas? So, it's start with our elected officials.
Other thing we was talking about was mental health in our community, the trauma, the systemic.
That's like another hour conversation. But I tell you what, that the mental health in our community play a part in why our schools are failing. Because for every child we get into the school, there's a backstory with that. It's that child eating the right food at home. It's their parents got the right resources to even be a parent, to even teach, to even help them with homework, to even walk them to school. What are we doing about that? Do they coming from an abusive home? Drug use, alcohol? What are we doing about that? Sometimes parents just drop their kids off at school because that's a safe haven. Takes them away. At least they get a lunch, they get breakfast, but that shouldn't be the case. Every school should have a space for the parents to feel like they part of that process in educating their kids.
The investment will be...
Yeah, you got to invest. You got to invest, and we're not seeing that. You have Esperanza that's, pretty much got a good reputation for investing in their students. However, we need more. This is just one. Like he just said, 2 kids just from this school was murdered a little while ago. Not even that much. Like, that is trauma. What are we doing for the rest of the kids here? Are we having counsels for them, counselors available for them? And not just for that day. Are we asking them, are you all right? Do you want to talk about it? Instead of assuming that, they cry, they let it out. Because trauma play out in different ways. You know, like people across the country view the guy in Texas as he's a murderer, he's this. But what happened? Who missed the red flags? You can't tell me that that kid didn't have red flags. You know, how is it that you could be jobless but still be able to buy 2 deadly rifles? Like, it don't add up. But then when stuff like this happens, our elected officials, again, they want to come together, oh my God, we got to do something. Well, I got to propose, and you put this in the article. Stop taking money from these lobbyists, right, that promote these guns in these gun stores.
And the other guy in Buffalo, no, 18 years old as well. The first
Because,
thing to do it is to fight.
because the reality is that any kid that have an iPhone or a computer could have access to a gun easily. The click of a mouse, you could go online and buy a gun. And it will come to your house in the mail. But that same kid can get into community college or one of these prestigious schools surrounding this county. You don't meet the economic status to come in this school because you live in this zip code, you don't qualify. But that same kid could go in any zip code in the city and get a gun.
Last thing, whatever you want to share with us that I didn't ask you, and maybe it's...
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I hope that people understand that if you want to make a difference, you got to stand up and be counted and not walk in nobody else's path and not worry about what nobody else think about you or say about you. You got to live in your own truth, and that's it. It don't matter what I think about you. What matters is what you think about yourself, and that's it. And don't buy into the hype that you can't and won't, because I am living proof of that.
Que Dios te siga bendiciendo y que sigas viviendo su propósito.
Gracias.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Wow,
Yeah.
sure.
So you mentioned like while you were incarcerated.
You want to come to be here?
That's
No?
fine. That's,
Okay.
when you were incarcerated, you had to free your mind before you were physically free.
Yeah.
And then even in your salutation, you talked about the person believing their narrative because it doesn't matter what other people think about them. Can you speak a little bit about that? I was actually thinking about that this morning, where obviously an individual can walk out their purpose based on the truth that they believe about themselves. Can you speak a little bit about that? Like, how did that affect you personally? How you believe that it kind of set the course for your life, and how that can be freeing for other people who might be confined to, whatever society says about them, to keep them enclosed from their own purpose.
I mean, it's simple, right? Do it matters if I care if you got black shoes or not? Do it matter if I say I don't like your shoes? What matters? What matters is that you like them. You wore them, you bought them, I'm proud of them, right? So it don't matter. And to me, it's like society have this perception of Latino males that we supposed to be a certain way. We supposed to be macho. We ain't supposed to cry. We supposed to be like the image of everything that they think is negative, right? And if you come from a certain zip code, that's even higher, because now they think because you come from North Philly that you're not supposed to be educated. You're not supposed to be at a certain status in life. You're supposed to be drug dealer. You don't sell drugs and you in North Philly. People say shit like that. Excuse my language, right? People say stuff like that, right? And that's because they don't know no better. Not because they racist. It's because they don't know no better. This is the way they was brought up to think about us. So when you free yourself and you say, well, you know what? I'm standing on my truth, whether you like it or not, that's cool. We could disagree and still be friends. Or we could disagree and not say nothing to me at all. Right? But I still believe what I believe. Period. And when you operate from that standpoint, you're not going to fail. Because if you do fail, guess what? Guess what you're going to tell yourself? I'm going to try it again. Because I still believe in it. Have you ever seen guys? I've seen guys in the community, they fix cars. They're not trained mechanics. But they really believe like, I could put this car together. And some of them can. And they keep trying till they make it work. And you be like, damn, how you did that? And they got all types of wires and, and my thing is, I think I could fix everything with tape. She would tell you.
Oh my God, duct tape.
With duct tape. I could create a wall. Everybody else is like, really? Duct tape? You get sheetrock. Why would I want to get sheetrock when I could do duct tape? But I really believe that. I really believe that to the point where I created a wall in my studio with duct tape and then hand pictures on it and everything. Like, listen, but that's what I believe, right? And I'm not gonna let nobody tell me, oh well, that don't look good. All right, cool. You ain't gotta come here. So I want people to understand, man, when you walk in your truth, when you free your mind first, everything else is free. I could be in a bathroom and I'm still free because while I'm still in the bathroom, I'm thinking I'm in California, I'm in Chicago, I'm traveling the world. All the places that I thought when I was in that cell, when I called Marie and she was in California then, she was in Texas and I came home and visit all them places and act like I knew where I was at because I actually read books about them places. So when I actually got there, people was like, you been here before? No, so how the heck you know about this? I read it in a book. I want to go here and eat. I want to go to this place. And it sounds crazy, but when you in a bathroom serving life, that's all you got. You can either be locked in your mind or you can be freed in your mind. And I always knew physically I was locked in, but in my mind, I was free. I was free. So all them suicidal thoughts, all those negative thoughts was gone. I'm thinking I'm free. And people you be like, oh my God, this dude just lost his mind. When I start talking about different cities and different projects that I wanted to do. This podcast didn't start with me coming home. This podcast started 30 years ago when I instructed Maria, every time we record the conversations because one day we could share this with the world. And at first she didn't even tell you like, it's a lot of recordings. I'm talking about recorded. So what you hearing in the podcast was probably recorded 20 years ago. It just sounds like with the technology now, it sounds like it was today. But a lot of that stuff was recorded years ago because I had a vision. I was like, I want to do this stuff, but I don't want to do it like what's out there. Then the word podcast came out and it made it easier for us to tell stories because it created a platform that gives the average person an opportunity to get out there. But no, I live in my own truth. If I want to wear shoes, I wear shoes. If I want to wear my sleeves, and I don't care. She tell you, I don't care. I don't care what nobody. If I like it, I'ma wear it. And my head up, like to the point where you probably be like, damn, where you get them joints from? Because that's the way I believe it, and that's the way I operate. I don't care what nobody say about me. I don't care what nobody think. They don't pay my rent. They don't pay the light. They don't pay none of that. So the only person that needs to care is me. But you got to free your mind first. And that goes for people incarcerated and people out here. People out here sometimes are more locked up than people incarcerated. Because we got more excuses out here. They ain't hiring me, so I'm going to drink. They ain't hiring me, so I'm going to go get high. Some BS. How about free your mind? Free your mind, because if I didn't have a job, you know what I'd be doing? I'd be going around, get me a shopping cart, collect some cans and some bottles, because I did it as a kid, and make some money. Because I know that's money. When I came home, my first job that I applied for was McDonald's. because I always wanted to work at McDonald's as a kid. Because the way I saw it was like, and I don't even like McDonald's that much. This is not an endorsement for them, right? But I always wanted to work at McDonald's because the way I had it figured out when we was coming up, you should know, right? You had summer jobs, and but they had summer jobs. They had summer jobs, right? And the summer jobs was either McDonald's, Burger King, these little fast food restaurants in New York. And you work there, they give you like $150 a week, but you got to eat for free. You got to take a meal back. And I was like, dang, I could always bring a free meal back. And I used to see the guys, the younger guys in my community come back. Like, yo, let me get some burgers, man. Like, especially the guys that work in White Castle. They used to come back with 20, 30 burgers, right? I'm like, dang. Yeah, so, you know, so I'm not the one that's gonna be like, I want what he got. Because it took years for him to get where he's at. And that's the problem that we have in our community. That's the problem we have with people coming home, that they automatically want to come in and have that level of status in the society that perhaps that person been working 20 years to get. Period. You know, so let me start at the bottom. Because when you work for it, you're going to keep it. You're going to work hard to keep it. But you got to free your mind. It's with everything. You got to free your... If you believe you can be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor. I believe that I wasn't going to be famous, and she said I'm famous. I don't know. But I always believed, right, that I was going to come home. I really believe that even when there was no case in sight, I said, I'm coming home. And I was doing everything that I was supposed to do to work towards that goal, right? I always believed when I came home that my freedom came with a purpose. I always believed that. I always say it. Like, that's the reason why I'm being let free, right? And I always believed that I could create a platform to tell my own narrative. And that's the reason why I went with that radio station in Philadelphia here. You know, where the owner, I was working for him. And because I supported a certain candidate, which is Danilo Bugos, because I supported him, and we took a video at Princeton University asking people to go out and vote, encouraging people. That owner refused to pay me for my check that I work for. Like, really refused to pay me. And I told him, listen, I don't know if you understand, but in my other life, I study law. And what you're doing is illegal. And I can prove it to you. Now, we could settle this in a peaceful way, or we could settle this where we could get the state involved. Why should I have to go to that? With my own kind, my own people, right? And the only reason you did it is because you thought this is an ex-offender and nobody gonna pay him no mind. That's why you did it. But what you forgot is that from time to time, I think like a journalist. I'm around journalists all day. So guess what I do when I go into certain groups and I ask people, can I record this conversation? That's the reason why I'm asking you, can I record this conversation? See, you forgot that part. You forgot that I got you recorded like on 1,000 different things that can lock your whole operation down. See, I'm not going to do that because that's not what I want to do. I just want to get my check and roll. You know, but people do that. People take advantage of ex-offenders and people that's been in situations where they think like, oh, I could take advantage. I could give you $7 an hour, $8 an hour, and use you for that label. And nobody's going to believe you because I'm this businessman in the community. You know, this is what people do. This is what, on a serious note, this is what people do. This is what some of our own people do. You know, I expect that from somebody else, but from my own people, so-called community leader, like, come on, bro, like, stop. And then when you start observing, because I observe, I look, I analyze, that what you really doing, you sucking the blood out of the people in the community. You faking it. You got therapists that not even therapists with fake degrees sucking up the insurance money from these people. And you denying these people that need the help, therapy, because they don't have the proper benefit card. That's what you doing. You got people in the front desk, right, writing people's notes. That's against the HIPAA law for a non-therapist to write a therapist's note. This is what's going on. You know, but when you speak about it, it's like, oh my God, he's starting trouble. Nah, you know, I'm just a little guy with a platform, right, that cares too much about what's going on in our community. You know, especially with the youth. Because I understand that if that youth grow up without the proper resources, he or she will probably end up where I was at. And that's how it's written. But we could change that. Schools like Esperanza could change that. Because even though we in the hood, when you in here, you have a different experience that prepare you to go out there and deal with what's down the block. You know, it don't have to be all you come in school and you being harassed. You got to walk through 100 metal detectors. That's jail. When you come to school, you should be in school, in a school setting. Everything in here should be love, respect, preparing you for a better life, not preparing you for prison. And most of the schools that you see around here, most of them, with the exception of Esperanza, because I love Esperanza, right? They're not metal detector wise, you know. Everything is love, everybody's respectful. That's what school should be like. That's what it should be like. And some of our leaders should be ashamed that we have not gathered all them state dollars and put it into Esperanza. Esperanza should be the model school for the city. And I say that anywhere. Not only because I'm here, not only because I know people here, but it's the truth. It's the truth. You know, can we improve? Yeah. But when you compare to other schools, we up here.
Let me follow up on that, and I know we're running out of time, but one of the sayings that you have that I love, you talk about education over incarceration.
That's the name of the scholarship,
And
yes.
so you just, touched upon that, but what's the message for young people, you know, who are being pulled in different directions? You know, what's the word that you have for them in terms of education over incarceration as a key, you know, to their life?
I mean, education could take you places that you never imagined. Period. I'm a prime example of that. Just come from California, meeting with the governor and the district attorney. Two people that don't like each other in the same room. And we having conversation, helping people get out of prison. You know, I ain't get there. I got there because I prepared myself. Even though I was in prison with a life sentence, I went to school. I got my bachelor's degree from Villanova. And even though they have this policy at Villanova where you can't be on campus because if you have a conviction, I still appreciate the opportunity they gave me because they prepared me for the world, right? So education is the key. It may not seem like when you come into school and, you know, you got to do homework, but I guarantee you when you graduate high school and college, your opportunities to a job increases if you have that degree versus you don't have a degree. Because if you don't have a degree, you're opening yourself to what I just finished saying, to people in the community that just want to pay you chop chain and not your worth. Most jobs in today's market, they pay you according to your level of education and degrees. So education is the key. So if any young person have doubts of that, ask your mother or father, why should I go to school? And they will tell you. Damn near 99% of parents in America will tell you, if I had the chance to go to school again, I would do it and have a better education. That's just a fact. Education is the key. Education is the key, Again, I remember when y'all was starting Esperanza. A long time ago, a little building. Look at the place now. Look at the place now. But it ain't started because people didn't believe in it. It started because people believe that education is the key. And it's still the key today. Yes, we have a lot of distractions and stuff, but guess what? When all that is gone, all the distraction in the neighborhood, when all the gentrification come down this way, and it's coming, the only thing you got left is your education. That's it. And without education, there's places you can't even wash dishes in Center City without a high school diploma. You can't even wash dishes, which back in the days, that was like a job nobody really wanted. Now, certain places in Center City, you got to have a GED or high school diploma for that. So you got to have some level of education. I'm not saying that it's a must to have a degree, because everybody's not cut for college. Everybody don't want to go to college, but you got to have at least a high school diploma and some trade. You got to have something that can put you ahead of the game. Because if you don't, the numbers don't lie. Look at the prison rate, the recidivism rate versus people that have high school diplomas and college degrees.